Hey everybody. Okay, we're at Act 3, Scene 3. We're in a room in the castle. Hamlet has just had his play. He's outed the king. The king has fled the premises. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have come to Hamlet and said, "You must go see your mother." So that's where we are. So let's get started. At this point on stage, we have the king, Rosencrantz, and Guildenstern. And the king, of course, is wigging out. He is freaked out. But he also has to remain cool, right? Because nobody else knows that he's a terrible, dirty, dirty murderer except for Hamlet and Horatio. They know. So the king says, "I like him not." Which is Hamlet. He does not like the fact that Hamlet now knows he's a murderer, but to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, the king's just saying, "I don't like that he's crazy. I don't like what's going on with Hamlet." And he says, "Nor stands it safe with us to let his madness range." So it's not safe to have Hamlet here in Elsinore in Denmark near us. His madness has reached a tipping point. And he says, "Therefore prepare you. I, your commission, will forthwith dispatch, and he to England shall along with you." So he's telling Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that they are going to take Hamlet to England, that he will be dispatched with them. "The terms of our estate may not endure hazard, so near us doth hourly grow out of his lunacies." So he's like in a hurry. He's like, the longer he's here, the worse it's going to grow, so we must send him. Perhaps he will get better. And then Guildenstern's, "We will ourselves provide most holy and religious fear. It is to keep those many bodies safe that live and feed upon your majesty." So he's like saying, we will keep the people of Denmark safe by escorting Hamlet to England. And then Rosencrantz starts waxing poetic, Polonius style, and he gives this long speech. And he begins, "The single and peculiar life is bound with all the strength and armor of the mind to keep itself from annoyance, but much more that spirit upon whose will depend and rest the lives of many." So he's talking about a single life, how, generally our minds can protect themselves from bad things that occur. But he's pointing out the fact when he says here that the spirit upon whose will depends and rests the lives of many, he's talking about the fact that both the king and both Hamlet being royal, they have to think about not only themselves, but really the people of Denmark. And the people of Denmark are their main priority, not the king or Hamlet, but the well-being of the state of Denmark. So they must put Denmark's well-being ahead of their own. So then he continues, "The cease of majesty dies not alone, but like a gulf doth draw what's near it with it. It is a massy wheel, fixed on the summit of the highest mount, to whose huge spokes 10,000 lesser things are mortised and adjoined, which when it falls, each small annexment, petty consequence, attends the boisterous ruin. Never alone did the king sigh, but with a general groan." So he's liking the people of Denmark to like a wheel and spokes, and if some part of that falls apart, whether it be the king's sanity or the prince's sanity or something, it all comes out of whack. It all becomes unbalanced. And then when he says, "Did the king sigh, but with a general groan?" So anything the king does, any decision that the king makes, the entirety of Denmark is affected. So Rosencrantz is just talking about how important it is that the king's not only making this decision for Hamlet, but he's also making it for the safety of Denmark. And the king goes, "Arm you, I pray you, to this speedy voyage, for we will fetters upon this spear which now goes to free-footed." So the king is basically like, just shut it down and go. And when he says, "For we will fetters upon this spear," which means fetters are like chains. So we're going to chain up the thing that we're afraid of, which now goes to free-footed. Hamlet's running amok right now. And so the king wants to chain him up. And then Rosencrantz and Guildenstern says, "We will haste us," which means, we'll get on that. So Rosencrantz and Guildenstern leave, and then of course Polonius enters, because he has to be in it, everything. And he goes, "My lord, he's going to his mother's closet." So he's been spying on Hamlet, and he watched Hamlet go up towards Gertrude's room. "Behind the arrest, I'll convey myself to hear the process." At this point, if you're looking for Polonius, he's hiding behind an arrest, which are the curtains somewhere in the castle. And then he goes, "I'll warrant she'll tax him home," which means I think she will speak to him and find out what's going on. Tax him home. "And as you said, and wisely was it said, 'tis meet that some more audience than a mother, since nature makes them partial, should o'erhear the speech of vantage. Fare you well, my liege, I'll call upon you ere you go to bed, and tell you what I know." So the king's like, "Thanks, dear Polonius," and then Polonius goes. Now, this is a really cool scene with the king, with Claudius, and this also tells us a lot about his character. And I've said it before, one of the great things about Shakespeare is his characters are never one-sided. They're never just good or just bad. They're always really complex. We're about to see something really complex about Claudius. And once he's alone on stage, he says, "Oh, my offense is rank. It smells to heaven. It hath the primal eldest curse upon it, a brother's murder." So he feels guilty. He's like, my offense is rank. I've murdered my brother, and it is a disgusting sin. And then when he says it has the primal eldest curse upon it, he's talking about Cain and Abel. He's making a biblical analogy. And he says, "Pray can I not? Though inclination be as sharp as will, my stronger guilt defeats my strong intent." So in this speech, he's lamenting the fact that he can't pray, that he can't ask forgiveness. And he continues, and he's going to tell us why he can't. And he says, "And like a man to double business bound, I stand and pause where I shall first begin and both neglect. What if this cursed hand were thicker than itself with brother's blood? Is there not rain enough in the sweet heavens to wash it white as snow? Whereto serves mercy but to confront the visage of offense?" So he's thinking about the fact that his hands are covered in blood, that he is guilty. But yet when he says, "Whereto serves mercy but to confront the visage of offense," he's talking about the fact of actually, if he's going to ask forgiveness for a sin, then he truly has to admit that he's a sinner. He feels like he needs to confess, but he doesn't want to do that. And so he continues, "And what's in prayer but this twofold force, to be forestalled ere we come to fall, or pardoned being down? Then I'll look up. My fault is past, but oh, what form of prayer can serve my turn? Forgive me my foul murder, that cannot be, since I am still possessed of those effects for which I did the murder." So basically he's saying, first of all, I can't confess because I'm not necessarily sorry for what I did, although, I feel some guilt, but I don't feel bad because I have everything I wanted. The reason that I committed the murder, I am enjoying the treasures that came with that. And so he's saying my crown, mine own ambition, and my queen. So he's thinking about, I'm king now. I wanted to be king. I'm king. I wanted Gertrude. I got her now. And so he continues, "May one be pardoned and retain the offense." So can I be forgiven yet still keep all the goodies from the murder that I got? Do I get to do that? And so he continues, "In this corrupted currents of this world, offense's gilded hand may shove by justice." And this little bit right here, he's talking about the fact that in the world, in the material world that we live in, your offenses can be forgiven by a gilded hand, which means like a bribe, by, giving somebody coin, gilding their hand with gold by paying them. And then he goes, "And oft 'tis seen the most wicked prize itself buys out the law, but 'tis not so above." So you can do that down here. You can pay people off, you can pay officials off, you can pay politicians off, but up there, it doesn't work, right? And then he goes, "There is no shuffling, There the action lies in his true nature, and we ourselves compelled even to the teeth and forehead of our faults to give an evidence. What then? What rests? Try what repentance can, what can it not? Yet what can it when one cannot repent? So he's stuck. He's like, I feel guilt for the murder, but I'm not willing to give up all of the things that I gained from the murder, so I'm just not going to do it. And so then he continues, O wretched state, O bosom black as death, O limed soul, that struggling to be free, art more engaged, help angels. And at this point he's calling out to the angels above, and he's like, make essay. And then he starts talking. He's like, bow stubborn knees and heart with strings of steel. Be soft as sinews of the newborn babe, all may be well. So he's trying to physically make himself kneel to get down in a position of prayer. And so he gets down and he's on his hands and knees at this point, and Hamlet walks in, right, on his way to his mom's. He's like, whoa, Mom. And he catches him. And when Hamlet sees him, and remember, he's fired up at this point, right? When he sees him, he says, now might I do it, Pat. Now he is praying. So when he says, now might I do it, Pat, he's like, I'll kill him now. So he pulls out his sword, and he's like, stabby him. But then he thinks, and now I'll do it. And he stops and he goes, and then he'll go to heaven. And so am I revenged? That would be scant, which means that would not be revenge at all. Because if you remember, King Hamlet's out stalking the night, all smoky from steam from having to hang out in hell all day, because he didn't have a chance to ask forgiveness for his sins. So why should Hamlet kill Claudius right at the moment that Hamlet thinks that he is asking forgiveness for all his sins, and send him straight to heaven? That's not revenge, right? So he continues, a villain kills my father, and for that I, his sole son, do this same villain send to heaven? Ugh. Oh, this is hire in salary, not revenge. Hire in salary is like paying somebody to do something. So he's like, I would just be helping him to heaven. That's not what I want. And so when he says he took my father grossly full of bread meant full of sin. So he took him at the moment that he was full of sin, with all his crimes broad blown as flesh is made, and how his audit stands, who knows, save heaven. But in our circumstance, and of course of thought, 'tis heavy with him. And am I then revenged to take him in the purging of his soul? So am I revenged when he says purging of his soul, while he is praying, while he is asking for forgiveness, when he is fit and seasoned for his passage? So he's just asked for forgiveness, so he's just ready to go, whoo, straight upstairs, right? And he's like, no, up sword, and know thou a more horrid hint. So when he says up sword, he puts his sword up, and he's like, no. He said, we'll wait for a more horrid hint, for a time when he's chock full of sin. That's what he means by a horrid hint. When he is drunk asleep, or in his rage, or in the incestuous pleasure of his bed, at gaming, swearing, or about some act that has no relish of salvation in't, then trip him, that his heels may kick at heaven. I love that. So as he's on his way to hell, his heels will be like, whoop, just missed the heaven. And that his soul may be as damned and black as hell, whereto it goes. My mother stays this physic, but prolongs thy sickly days. And then he exits. And the king rises. But we know, because we've seen it on stage, that the king couldn't ask forgiveness, that he tried real hard, but he just couldn't do it. And so, I don't know. I think that's interesting about Claudius, though, to think about the fact that he couldn't ask for forgiveness, which is interesting, which makes him complex. And I enjoy that about Claudius. I have a hard time hating Claudius, because, I mean, sure, he's a murderer. That's really bad. But oh gosh, he just really loved Gertrude. And who doesn't want a shiny crown? I mean, I wouldn't murder somebody, but, you know, medieval times. What are you going to do? Alright, so then the king rises and he goes, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Which means I can say all I want, but when my intentions lay here, words without thoughts never go. Never to heaven go. Which means if I'm not going to relinquish all of the things that I gained from the murder, I can't ask forgiveness. I can't keep the treasure and then be sorry for how I got it. It's just not the way it works. And I'm going to go ahead and do Act 3, Scene 4. No, I'm not. I'm a liar. I'm a dirty, dirty liar. I'm going to stop here and make another video because this one's already 16 minutes, and this will help you guys keep things separated. So we will pick up next time on Act 3, Scene 4. All right, bye.